Hello, this is for class EDL 856, and I'm going to kind of try something new with you guys that I've been challenged to do, and that's just kind of spice up my introduction whenever I tell you about myself. So thank you for allowing me to be vulnerable and trying to do so. So I am Sandra Anderson, and just kind of a little bit of who I actually am. I would say that I'm a lifelong learner. I am always striving to find more information out. Through every single thing that I do, I try to honor God as a wife, as a mother of four, and through the way I interact with pretty much anybody and everybody I know on a daily basis. And so that's just kind of my foundation of who I am. I always try to challenge myself to be part of a solution before I'm part of a problem. I always want to be the best person that I can in all circumstances, though I very often fall short. I am quite bold in sharing how my life has shifted through my faith, and I love sharing that with others. I love being a better person and trying to project that love out through the way I interact with adults, with children, and pretty much anybody I encounter. So that's kind of who I am to my core. Now that we have that all out on the table. A little bit about me professionally. I didn't struggle per se in school, but I had a child who struggled even before I started teaching when I was doing a daycare. And we would go home every night and we would work on reading, and we kept trying to do things and just nothing was working. And then when I was in the classroom for about 6 years teaching, I would have the same issues with students who struggle to learn how to read, and they would struggle, and I would try to do what our curriculum said and how that worked, and I didn't like it because I didn't feel that it was the best way to help kids. And so I just started to dig to learn more about how I could better help these kids and to really understand what it was I needed to do in order to get them where they needed to be. And kind of through that, I discovered a lot about the science of reading, which is how I shifted into my current position as a reading specialist, where I genuinely love the opportunity to find whatever it takes to help kids learn how to be successful, not just successful readers, but successful learners, and just helping them to discover what they're capable of, and me meeting them wherever they're at and helping them get to where they need to be. I also love to help support teachers to do the same. I've been very fortunate. I have a very respectful staff who trust me a lot in their guidance, and I've loved developing collaborative relationships with the staff and being able to kind of help them do so. So that's who I am in a nutshell. Kind of through that collaborative work, I've just kind of discovered a desire to take my knowledge and skill set further into leadership, which has landed me with where I'm at right now, working on my building administration degree. So that is who I am. I work at a small elementary school in the Rock Creek School District. We have about 150 students, and I'm the only reading specialist within the building. There is 8 classrooms, and so I service all students K through 4. So that's who I am professionally. When I transition in to the types of communication methods in which our district currently uses, there's a lot. Just a little background knowledge. We have a very rapidly growing school district, and I kind of feel like what has happened as technology has expanded and exploded, as well as the population within our district, I believe that we've almost increased by 80 students annually, consistently over the last 5 years. And so our population just keeps growing and growing. And so I kind of believe what's happened is through that transition, so many communication barriers have kind of been lost in the way because there wasn't a systematic approach put into place at the time. And so we kind of have a little bit of everything right now with communication. When it comes to the digital side, definitely email is our biggest reliable source of communication. We also utilize Swift alerts, which is similar to email, but it's synced through PowerSchool, and so it allows teachers to go in and just be able to push out a Swift alert to all the students within their classroom. I honestly did not even know it was an option to utilize in our district until I transitioned buildings and I went into a building where they used it for everything. I was like, oh my, this would have been nice to know that we had, like when I had a classroom. So you live and you learn, but just kind of having the opportunity to be in both buildings has also kind of helped me identify some communication barriers that could exist across the district. We also utilize Sign Up Genius, and this kind of gets more down to the classroom level. There isn't district-wide policy in what has to be used. There's some teachers use Google Classroom, Facebook, Twitter, GroupMe, Seesaw, Zoom. Seesaw is kind of what we more heavily relied on during COVID because it was just a friendlier platform that also opened up that line of communication with students during that time in a much more user-friendly way, especially for our younger populations. I'm going to kind of jump over to the written form because a lot of what is written can be shared digitally. Sorry about that. MTSS notification letters is one that I have up there. Those go home with students after we complete our screening. Progress reports, pretty much any form of data is usually shared in written form, as well as homework. We also have a local newspaper where communication can be shared. And then there are weekly reports from our building administrators as well as our superintendent and activity reports. But those are typically typed up reports that are shared through Swift Alerts. So again, we kind of utilize that digital tool to share written types of communication. When I consider our oral methods of communication in regards to the district as a whole, we have district in-service days. This year, we've been able to utilize 2 collaboration days where we're able to meet with grade level, do vertical and horizontal teaming. We also have faculty meetings and parent-teacher conferences. There's site council meetings within our building where that information can be poured out from the building administrator kind of to parents as well as receiving feedback from parents, which I think that's a big aspect of communication that isn't always addressed is the listening component of it. So I like that our building has the opportunity and a format in which we are able to listen to our stakeholders and share with them when they have something they want to share. They have the opportunity in a set time when they're able to do so. I would say that oral communication is probably more reserved for sensitive content. If we have a student who might need extra support in specific areas, or if we need additional support from parents, I believe that oral communication is usually the best way to address those types of communication because it can be very sensitive in kind of like text messages. Like it can be perceived in a wrong way, and there's so much more that goes into communication other than just direct. There's the indirect with body language, and having those conversations in person orally allow us to read those things and be able to anticipate how a parent is feeling and how we need to handle the situation moving from there forward. So kind of semi-repeating what that slide had, the tools that are provided to staff are, the majority of them that are used are actually provided by the district. There's the district website, there's Swift Alerts, Seesaw, Power School. There's Home Connect letters that are provided for both curriculums. Home Connect provided for accelerated readers. So if parents want to know if their child takes a test and what they get on it, they automatically get an email update for that. Then we also utilize Twitter and Facebook. Tools purchased personally by teachers. I would say that the most common thing that's actually purchased is like the templates for communication, maybe a newsletter format or just an user-friendly way to communicate something, I would say is the most common type of item purchased. I honestly cannot think of any that are individually purchased. Even Sign Up Genius allows you to utilize it on the free platform. Our district does pay for Zoom, and that's to be able to stream our Board of Education meetings. So there's that also included. And then tools desired for purchase. I know this conversation has been rolling within our district for the last few years, and it's really just wanting one common platform because having 4 kids as a parent, I can know how confusing it can be to know if I should check Seesaw for my second grader, if I need to check Google Classroom for my seventh grader, if I need to check PowerSchool for my ninth grader, and then if I need to check maybe a Google Current for something else. Like, that can be overwhelming as a parent, and I'm very thankful for the productive conversations that have happened at the district level. And actually, in our recent board meeting just 2 weeks ago, they approved the purchase of Aptigee, which I'm not super familiar with, but it's kind of the goal is to revamp our website and create that one point of contact for everything. And I think that is a positive step in the right direction. So, thinking about how reading the sources that were provided as well as the articles about an introduction, about the impact that they might have on my professional life and how I would use them as a building leader. This is a very honest analysis of where I take that. I do feel like I am a pretty personable person. I try to always open up that line of communication, but in doing so, sometimes I feel like I cross professional lines in the sense in my attempt to connect with people more. I wonder sometimes if I become too transparent. And so it's kind of helped me. There was a specific article about the introductions that I cannot think of the woman who wrote it, but she referenced her going to the doctor and just kind of thinking about how she perceived a situation and how far into she read just certain greetings just kind of really made me evaluate how I want to come across to people, especially thinking forward. If I do want to move into a position of building leadership, I need to be very mindful of how my words can be taken and what goes along with that. I'd also just kind of, in part with that, just want to further develop my social intelligence to know those appropriate times for that and just continuing to be able to read a room to know when that is a good idea and when it's not. When I think about strategic policies for communicating effectively, I did kind of already hit on this really within 2 to 3 different slides, and just kind of talking about the growth of our district and how we kind of have our eggs in a lot of different baskets right now in regards to communication, and there is definitely such a thing as communication overload or inconsistent communication, and just the need for a strategic policy within our entire district to all be on the same page and all adequately communicate what we need to communicate and knowing how to do so. I think we are headed in the right direction with even just having the discussions at the board level. I've attended board meetings consistently for the last 2 years, and we're starting to actually talk about real things and solve real problems, such as communication barriers. And I think that's so valuable, and thankful for a Board of Education that does have those conversations and a superintendent that leads that. So, concluding statements in regards to this module, I definitely feel like this was an excellent module for correlating with a standard of 5.3 through the analysis of current practices being used within the district where I work. Through this analysis, I was able to identify the most productive and common forms of communication being used to evaluate their effectiveness. This module has also enabled me to evaluate every aspect of communication, how often it occurs, and made me more mindful of how I could be perceived in my first introductions. So, great module for showing those things. It was very relevant to my current position within education to be able to analyze if I am communicating in the most effective means possible. This is also relevant in me recognizing the need for consistent lines of communication with all of my students and parents. This has actually been a professional goal of mine this year. I am a reading specialist and kind of the MTSS coordinator in a very small and relaxed school. So there tends to be just a lot of conversation that is had, but as topics become more sensitive and as norms begin to shift, I want to be more diligent in having a systematic approach to how I communicate and when I communicate with parents. Reflecting upon this, I really did enjoy this assignment, specifically the articles and quizzes on introductions. I'm very bold, and I appreciated the encouraged boldness through the articles. It just kind of reassured sometimes how I do business and what I believe connects me with people in a strong way. Also made me think about maybe what I don't want to connect with in a strong way. And I really appreciated the article that it identified listening as a type of communication. I thought that was a very important piece. I think it's an incredibly important aspect of communication to consider, to always open the door that you will listen to whatever it is your stakeholders are wanting to share. So thank you for taking the time to listen. I appreciate that from you, and have a great day.